We're going to get back to Daniel here in a couple of weeks, but I wanted to do two-part, this just as we get the year started, type of lesson on Wednesday nights. A two-part, if you again raise up your hand and we'll get a lesson to you. Just a two-part lesson, essentially, and I'm calling it Burden Bearers. And I have preached recently out of Galatians 6, so this will not be redundant at all in the sense of what we covered, but this is certainly the verses that we want to use as our text to get started tonight in Galatians 6, and then we'll look at Romans 15. And I hope this year that, you know, if we want to have a good year, I know we all are hoping God will bless us, and you know, God works through us, and that's the idea that when we live for others, when we live for God and we live for others, that's where we get God's strength. That's where we get God's blessings. That's where God gives us, you know, all that we need, and we're doing it for others, and He lets it stick. You know, oftentimes if we're going to a year, we have things we hope to see for ourselves, and I'm not saying that's wrong, but that may be the wrong approach. And if this could be a year where we really determine, God, use me like never before to help bear the burdens of others. And we need that. We need Christians today who really care about carrying. Now, it doesn't mean you won't have your own, but here's what I have found, and this is biblically true. When we are weak, what does the Bible say? Then we are strong, right? Because it's as we carry the burdens of others that God in His mercy carries ours. And I'll tell you if you want, and I'm not saying that we have an angle, you know, you're angling God, and, you know, He's pretty smart. He knows if we're trying to do that. But quite honestly, you know, when you and I care most about carrying the burdens of others, and our spirituality is angled towards helping, you know, despite what we have going on, because we always have stuff going on. There always are things in our lives, but we sometimes can get so consumed with what we carry that we stop carrying. And then we're not living a Christian life anymore. The Christian life is about carrying, not just caring, C-A-R-I-N-G, but carrying. That's the Christian life. That's Christianity 101. So Galatians chapter 6, if you would please look with me in the first two verses where the Bible says, "Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one," notice what the Bible says, "however, in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burdens," the Bible says, "and so fulfill the law of Christ." And just go back with me very quickly to Romans chapter 15, and I believe I've been preaching and teaching on this quite a bit over the last month or so, but I believe it's such an important truth for us tonight. Romans chapter 15, if you would please notice in verse number 1, a very similar theme that we have in this one verse, Romans 15 verse 1. "We then that are strong ought," and I'll say more about that in just a little bit, "to bear the infirmities of" who? The weak, and not to please ourselves. Father, I pray you bless tonight in our Bible study. Please, in Jesus' name, amen. Tonight, as you can see in your lesson, we're calling it Burden Bearers, Part 1. And tonight we're going to focus on being stable. Being stable. Now hold your place, and we'll go back to Galatians 6 in a little bit, but go with me to Genesis 49. Genesis 49. And while you're turning to Genesis 49, let me make a couple of statements. Now, to be a burden bearer, it is important that we ourselves become spiritually and emotionally stable. If God is going to use me in the lives of others, and that, by the way, is what God wants. He wants to use us in the lives of others. I myself must be both spiritually and emotionally stable. That is so important. And you know, there oftentimes I'll get a call from kids at the college, different colleges where our kids will go, or kids young people that may know me at different Bible colleges. And sometimes they have assignments that, you know, like in church ed or whatever, where they have to call a pastor and they, you know, if you were looking to hire an assistant pastor, what are the top 3 qualifications you're looking for? What are the top 5 qualifications you're looking for? And, you know, when you're looking to hire someone, what are you looking for? And my answers probably aren't what they're looking for, or they're a little surprised. And I always will have in the top 3 or top 5 stable. I want to make sure, I very seldom look for someone with talent, or I look for someone, that has different abilities or different pedigree. But I'll tell them, I'm looking for someone stable. Someone that polices themselves, someone that maintenances themselves. There's strength and stability. A person can learn to do certain things. A person can be taught to do certain things. A person can develop certain skills, but stability is something that no one can inject in us. We have to do it ourselves, and I'm telling you, it is so important in our day and time that we are stable people. So before I can be used in the hands of God to be a burden bearer, I myself must become stable, both spiritually and emotionally. Now, in our notes, what it takes to become stable is what we will have to do, is what we will have to continue to be, what will have to continue to be done to remain stable. So what it takes to become stable is what will have to continue to be done to remain stable. So what happens sometimes, it's like going to the doctor when someone is involved in an accident. And what are the first responders, or what are they going to try to do to that person? They're going to try to help them become stable, stabilize them. And then they have to continue to keep them stable. When a person goes in for surgery, they're wanting to make sure their vital signs are what? Stable. Their blood pressure, their blood oxygen, their pulse is not erratic, that they're stable. And then when they're in surgery, they have a team of medical professionals that are all trying to monitor to make sure they're what? Stable. And then when they come out of surgery, what do they constantly evaluate? What are they constantly monitoring to make sure that the person is stable? So what you do to become stable, you have to continue to do to remain stable. Now, if you look at Genesis 49, and this is a very sad story in the Bible, where you had, of course, Abraham, whose son Isaac, and then God bypassed Esau to Jacob the younger, which Esau was not stable, and then Jacob had 12 sons, and his oldest son's name was Reuben. Now, the way it would work in that culture was that the oldest son inherited 3 blessings, unless he was disqualified for some reason, or God just knew that there was something that was going to be in him that he couldn't bless, like Esau. Number 1, he was to get the double portion. He was to get of the birthright that Esau traded with Jacob for a bowl of lentil soup, and that essentially would be that he'd get a double portion. As the father would mete out the inheritance to the rest of the kids, the firstborn would get twice as much as everyone else got. And so that was supposed to be Reuben. Reuben was supposed to receive the double portion. But which of the sons of Jacob got the double portion? Anyone want to guess at that? Who got the double portion? Joseph did, right, correct. Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. So they received the double portion. Now the second one was to be the priest of the family. And now who was the brother that became the priest of the family of Jacob? It was, come on class, Levi. Yeah, named after the genes, Levi. No, I'm kidding about that, but Levi, right. Okay, and then of course there was the messianic blessing that was unique to Abraham and Isaac. And if you study the book of Matthew, chapter 1, the genealogy of Christ, from Joseph, the stepdad of Jesus, he goes all the way back to show the genealogy of the Messiah. That was also supposed to go through Reuben. So Reuben did not get the double portion, Joseph did. He did not get the priestly honor and blessing, Levi did. And then the Messiah was not going to come through his loins, but which of the sons of Jacob did it come through? The tribe of Judah. Isn't that sad? He missed out on all of it. Now, it wasn't because he wasn't necessarily, was he a bad man? Probably Reuben was, I think he's the one that actually wanted to save the life of Joseph. Remember when all the brothers wanted to kill him? It was Reuben who kind of felt badly about the whole thing and began to second guess because he knew this would break his father's heart. So he probably wasn't a terrible person per se. But look at Genesis 49, verse number 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Now Reuben is the oldest. Notice what Jacob says. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Now this, he's saying, what potential, what abilities. I mean, Reuben was probably a man's man. He was probably very capable. He was probably a natural leader as far as he was probably decisive, and he was someone that just you wanted to be around, maybe in many ways. But look at verse 4. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. Reuben sadly was unqualified to lead and guide others because he was not capable of leading and guiding himself. He could not lead and guide himself. He had these natural qualities that did him no good. He had these natural abilities that profited him very little. He had this special, unique position as being the firstborn of Jacob, and yet that privilege meant he couldn't take advantage of that because he was unstable as water. You ever been out in the ocean before? I remember being 24 miles off the coast of Miami, my one and only time deep sea fishing. The boat seemed pretty good size when I got off the shore, but when we got out in the water, it all of a sudden was very small compared to these swells that were coming up 7, 8, 10 feet, just up and down and up and down and up and down. It got real windy when we got out there. Now I am already naturally seasick. I mean, or motion sick. I was that kid in the back seat of the car that would get sick. I was that kid that couldn't ride on a merry-go-round and I'd get sick. I just always really motion sick. Now, I didn't know how to prepare for deep sea fishing. No one told me what to do. No one told me to take a Dramamine. No one told me to do that. So I had nothing in my system. So I'm already naturally motion sick. I'm out 24 miles off the coast. We're out there for hours. And this guy that took us out there spent all the money on the tackle, the gear, the fuel, the license for us to go out there. Somebody paid for us to do all this. And we're getting out there, and I mean, I am really getting sick. Up and down and up and down and up and down. One of the fellows I was fishing with said, hey, eat this apple. Apples are good for you. I hear it can calm your stomach, and that might help you. Can I tell you something? If you're ever 24 miles off the coast of Miami, Florida, and you're experiencing great motion sickness, do not eat an apple. I'll tell you right now, one of the worst things you can do. So, I mean, that only made it worse, and now I'm really having a hard time. And he said, you know what? I heard the same guy. I heard ginger ale is what you need to do. If the apple didn't work, drink some ginger ale. Can I tell you the second thing not to do? Number 1, do not eat an apple. Number 2, do not wash it down with ginger ale. Needless to say, I spent the next 3 hours performing mating calls to sea lions. And that's all I'm going to tell you. And I had to be hung over the side of the boat to do so. That's all I'm going to tell you. All I can tell you is that there was weird creatures coming to the boat because they thought I was beckoning them, and that was not the case at all. I mean, I was sick, unstable, up and down and up and down and up and down. But you know what was funny? As soon as we pulled in and docked, I had had the stomach virus before. That is nothing compared to what I experienced. I mean, you name it. I've had food poisoning before. This was, to me, worse than food poisoning. What I experienced out there was horrible. And but as soon as I got my feet on solid ground, no nausea. It was something. Once my feet hit stability, literally, I wanted an apple and a ginger ale, then I was ready to go. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Now that shouldn't define us spiritually. Up and down, right? Emotionally, up and down, up and down. Never know what to expect. Never know who we're going to be. Never know what our spirituality is going to be. Up and down. How can we be used to help people if we can't help ourselves? And I can't help that one of the main things I need to do for myself is keep myself stable. Now, we're in your notes. All is good, and we are able to be a blessing to many in need when we are up. Okay, when we're up. So all is good, and we are able to be a blessing to many in need when we are up. So let's say when we're up spiritually and we're up emotionally, we can be a big help, can't we? We have a positive outlook. We have positive disposition. We have positive reactions. We have our walk with God is consistent, and we are part of the solution to things going on. Look at number 2. We are also capable of becoming a burden to those around us when we are down. So when we're up, we can be a blessing, and then when we're down, we're a burden. So the same person can be a great blessing, and the same person can be a great burden. Now think about that. Where you got, when I'm up, I'm a blessing. When I'm down, I'm a burden. Now, number 3, the down is capable of taking away from the up. The down is capable of taking away from the up. Now, we want everyone to evaluate us by what we contribute when we're up. And then we want people to ignore what we take away when we're down. Now, here's the reality. If we're not careful, what we bring to the table when we're down will subtract much, if not all, of what we contributed when we're up. The number 4, that which is dependent upon us when we are up can be undermined. UNDERMINED, undermined. That which is dependent upon us when we are up can be undermined by what we say and do or don't do when we are down. And that's the reality. All the things that we do when we're up, and a lot of that we establish when we're up, and everything we're trying to accomplish when we're up, we undermine it our own selves when we are down. It's not someone else that's doing it. It's not someone that's an enemy of ours that's doing it. It's not someone that's out to get us that's doing it. We're doing it to our own selves. So number 5 then, burden bearers take personal responsibility. Burden bearers take personal responsibility for their own stability. Burden bearers take personal responsibility for their own stability. Now, if you would please go back with me to Galatians chapter 6. Very quickly, please. Galatians chapter 6. I want us to look at verses 4 and 5 where we find this taught. Burden bearers take personal responsibility for their own stability. Look again, verse 4. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden. Let me give you number 1. Being stable, remaining stable takes commitment. This is not rocket science, but it's important. Being stable and remaining stable takes commitment. It takes commitment. Now, stability is never accidental. It is the fruit of deliberate, ongoing commitment. Commitment's vital. We have to make commitments. People today don't want to make them. We want to somewhat make commitments. We want to somewhat obligate ourselves. But we're not, in our society today, you have to have 30 pages of paperwork with all this verification and validations and notarizing and all of that to get people to keep their word. I mean, you can't get a cell phone without 20 pages of paperwork. You can't, there's hardly anything you can do anymore because of people won't keep their word. Commitments. But if we're going to be stable, we have to be people that do 2 things. Number 1, we have to make commitments. The right ones. The right commitments. And then number 2, we got to keep them. So let me give you letter A. Our commitment needs to be conscientious. Conscientious. Let me spell that. CONSCIENTIOUS. 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 Now, if you didn't get that, the first arrow has that word in there too. So Peter, think about this. Peter's vow and denial. Remember Peter? Though everyone else should deny you, right? I will never deny you. Did he not make a commitment? But it wasn't conscientious. He was not doing for the right reasons. And this is the idea. Peter was not doing for the right reasons. This is in your notes, for the right reasons. You know, wrong actions flow from wrong motives. When my motives are wrong, and I'm not doing them as unto the Lord, it's only a matter of time that my actions will correspond. So let me give you number one. I don't think there are any blanks here, but I think I have these in your notes. Peter did the right thing initially, right? He followed Christ into the courtyard. But he wasn't committed for the right reasons. His commitment was impulsive. His commitment was emotional. His commitment was self-confident rather than humble and prayerful. He followed at a distance, which was already a bad thing. He warmed himself at the enemy's fire, which again was a terrible thing. When pressure came, denial came naturally. It was only natural for Peter to curse and swear and deny the Lord 3 times. It was more natural for him to do that than for him to keep his commitment. Why? Because his motives were all wrong. See, a commitment that is not conscientious, we're careful, thoughtful, and prayerful, will collapse under pressure. Now, stability requires asking a few questions. Number one, why am I doing this? Let's just say number one and only number one. Why am I doing this? You ever ask yourself, why am I doing this? Burden bearing is not about appearances. It's not so that others think I'm a good person, so that others think I'm a good Christian, so that somebody owes me. You remember when I helped you? Kind of where they owe you. It's not about emotions because you get something out of it. I just love helping people. It just makes me feel good. It doesn't always make me feel good. You ever help somebody shovel their driveway? That don't make you feel good. It doesn't make me feel good. You ever help somebody get out of the mud? They get stuck in the mud? That don't make me feel good. You ever help there are a lot of things that you do. I don't feel better at the end of the day. I feel worse at the end of the day. But we're not doing it because we feel good. We do it because it needs to be done and we want to help that person out because we care. It is about obedience and humility. In Galatians 6:1, it warns us to consider ourselves, right, lest we also be tempted. Now, let me give you the next arrow. Peter would have to be humbled. Peter would have to be humbled in order for him to become conscientious and stable. And here's what I put in my notes, as we all do. God resists the proud, but he does what? Gives grace to the humble. It's an honor for God to use us. Now think about this. It's an honor for God to use us to be a help in the lives of others. Can we say that? It's an honor and a privilege for God to use us to be a blessing in the lives of others. Now let me give you letter B. Not only does our commitment need to be conscientious, but our commitments need to be calculated. Our commitments need to be calculated. Remember Ruth clinging to Naomi, where, Elimelech died, and then the 2 boys died, and you had Orpah, and you had Ruth, and these were Moabitesses, so there's no reason for them to go on with Ruth for Naomi back into Israel. She went out full, she's going back empty. She had nothing to offer them. She had no younger son that she could offer them as husbands. They were going to be outcast. If they go with her, she has nothing to offer. So she tells her 2 daughter-in-laws, go back to your people. You're young enough to find husbands, and build a life for yourselves. Well, one of the daughter-in-laws did, but Ruth did not. Ruth did not want to go back to the old life. Ruth did not want to go back to what she used to be. She wanted to follow Naomi. And Naomi made it clear, Ruth, if you come with me, I can't offer you a future. Ruth, you come with me, I will probably die before you do. And then what will happen to you? I can only offer you poverty. I can only offer you humility. I can only offer you a difficult life. I'll love you like you're my daughter. I'll honor you like you're my daughter, but that's about all I can do. So now Ruth, though, understood what she was getting into. So and that's in your notes. Ruth understood clearly what she was committing to. And this is one of the things I think is so important. Where where we understand what it's going to take before we do it, but we still do it. But why do a lot of marriages fall apart? Because people enter into them unadvisedly. There is too much emotion. There's too much physical attraction that they are drawn to each other. They think that's going to last. That's not going to last. But it's entering into it unadvisedly. When young men, for instance, come under my tutelage for the ministry, I give them reality. And if I could almost talk them out of it, I will. Why? Because they won't last. If they can't hear, that's going to be hard. If they can't hear, all the things that go into the ministry, then they don't belong. Because they're not going to last. They're not going to be valuable. They're not going to, you follow me? Some of you in your profession. You go through training. We have some law enforcement. We have military here. Boy, they make it real easy for you, don't they? And boot camp is just easy. In your police academy, right? Gentlemen that are in the police force, it's easy, right? They don't want to lose you. They don't want to make it too hard on you when you're at military academy or boot camp or police academy. They don't want to make it too hard for you because they don't want you to quit. So they're going to make it, just do 5 push-ups. Do the best you can. Oh, a mile? Did we say run a mile? No. Just walk it. Walk it if you can. And there's a coffee place and a Dunkin' Donuts, and help yourself. We got a charge account. Okay, guys, don't be hard on them. We don't want to lose these guys. Some of you that are we have some carpenters and we have some professionals in that capacity. If you ever hire people to help you, you're going to let them know, hey, I work hard, right? I work hard. You're going to help me. I work hard. So if you need to know if you're going to help me, what that all means. You want them to know up front, because when it gets hot or it gets cold, they can't be quitting on you. There's a reason why the Apostle Paul didn't want John Mark, not my John Mark, but John Mark in the Bible to go back with him. He quit when the going got hard. He didn't last. He wouldn't keep his commitment. Now, number one, stable people are not blind idealists. They're sober-minded servants. In Romans 15:1, the idea is bearing infirmities is costly, not convenient. He said, we then are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. Now that word ought is much stronger than it sounds like. It's basically saying assigning responsibility. We are indebted. We are duty bound. If we are stronger, we ought to do this. It's our duty. We ought to do it. For instance, we're going to build a building and we're going to have, some stairs in different places, not big stairs. But do we have to put handrails up? Now, of course, you have to put handrails up. But even if we didn't have to let's say a staircase. If somebody's building a staircase, do you have to put handrails up? No. But ought you? Yes. Why? Because there are going to be people that need those handrails. We ought to do it. We're going to have, wheelchair, we're going to have handicap bathrooms, and even if we didn't have to, ought we? Yes. People are going to need those. You ought to do it. It's not just something that it's nice if you do it. No, you ought to do it. You ought to do it. Hey, we're free in America. We're free citizens. Should we vote? Yes, we ought to vote. We ought to vote because we are free, because we can vote. We ought to vote. There are certain things we ought to do because of thinking about other people and thinking of consequences or thinking about our privileges. There are things we ought to do. And if we are strong, if God has blessed us and given us some knowledge and some wisdom and some experience that can benefit others, hey, we ought to use that to help others. Now, number two, many want to help with burdens until they realize burdens are heavy. They want to help with burdens until they realize burdens are heavy. You ever have someone ask you to help them do something? You say to someone, if you ever need me, let me know. Now, we say that, but we're like, please don't ever need me. Don't ever call me. But if I could ever be a help to you in any way, just let me know. Really? Hey, I got to move this thing up a flight of stairs. Oh, what day is it? I'm sure I'm going to be busy. I need to make sure I'm busy on that day when they call me. And, especially if it's hard, it's an inconvenient hour. It's a lot of work. It's more involved. We're like, well, I didn't know it was going to be all this. Now, number three, consider this. Ruth didn't commit to outcomes. Ruth did not commit to outcomes. She committed to obedience. Ruth found God through Naomi. That's what I believe. I believe Ruth found God through Naomi. And so Ruth wasn't just not wanting to lose her mother-in-law. She was not wanting to lose that relationship she had developed with God. So she clung to her out of obedience. Okay, this is going to be tough, but I still have you and I have my God. He's not just your God anymore, Naomi. He's my God. It'll be tough. Okay. We're going to be scraping and gleaning to provide. Okay. You can't promise me a life of ease. You got no son to give me. But so I go back to being an idolater? I go back to that wicked lifestyle that goes with that? No. Yes, that would be easier. Yes, that would be more convenient. Yes, I'd be more accepted. But I can't go back on God. And that's the idea where we calculate. So number 4, stability grows when commitment is rooted in clarity and not emotion. Stability grows when commitment is rooted in clarity, not emotion. Ruth knew what she was doing. You know, when it comes to being a burden bearer, we don't just emotionally get all stirred up and respond emotionally. No, we all can do that at times, but that only lasts so long. But when we are by conviction, because we know this is what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches we're supposed to bear one another's burdens. It's not a suggestion, ladies and gentlemen. It is a command. It is a command. We are commanded to. So I'm not waiting for something to strike me emotionally. I don't need a picture of somebody in need. I don't need a well-worded plea for help to get me, motivated. Matter of fact, if we really are scriptural, we're not even waiting for someone to come to us. We're always looking, prayerfully looking, and trying to be a help. Let me give you letter C. Not only does our commitment need to be conscientious, and not only does our commitment need to be calculated, but letter C, and let's stop with this one tonight. How about our commitment needs to be consistent? Our commitment needs to be consistent. It's like buying a pet. Your children want to, let's say a dog. Those are my favorite kind of pets. A dog. I think dogs will be in heaven. No, I don't know about that. We know there'll be horses up there, but because we're riding horses when we come back down, that's the reason why we know that. But a kid will say, "Oh, can I have this dog?" And I'll take the dog outside and I'll make sure he goes bathroom or she goes bathroom, and I'll feed it and I'll clean up after it, and your children will say, "Can I have this gerbil or this hamster or can I have this lizard or can I have this cat or this bird or whatever it is, this goldfish, this betta fish, this this piranha, whatever it is you want to have. Can I have this? And I'll take care of it." And you know what's involved? "Oh yeah." They'll say whatever they have to say till they get it. And all of a sudden that dog starts whining, at 2 o'clock in the morning because it has to go outside and go potty, or the dog doesn't do that and instead it uses inside to go potty, and there's a mess or whatever else. And then, can we get rid of it? Can we get rid of it? Or they don't play with it anymore. It's not as cute as it used to be. But when you have a pet, its overall health requires an everyday commitment towards its care. Isn't that true? An everyday commitment. A pet doesn't stay healthy because of occasional attention, emotional bursts of affection, and crisis responses only. We better feed it. It looks like it's going to die. We better give it some water. Its eyes are red. It looks like it's dehydrated. It thrives because of daily feeding, regular care, faithful maintenance. I've often said, again, I love work with animals. I do. If I wasn't a pastor, I could see myself on a farm. No, I couldn't see myself on a farm, but I do enjoy animals. But one of the highest forms of affection to an animal, anybody know what it is? It's feeding them. It really is. The highest form of affection for an animal is to feed whoever feeds it. And that's the highest form of affection. And that's why, if you really want to bond with your animal, and it's the same with children, no, I'm kidding about that. But you feed it. And, and especially the person that does it on a daily basis, on a regular basis. That person, that animal knows, because that's, for an animal, that means everything. It's not just who plays with it and who pets it, but who takes care of it. That's who that animal will be most loyal to. And especially if that person is every day there, every day there, every day there, every day there, every day there. We grew up having a lot of animals, and I made a commitment to help take care of them. I was the one that watered and fed them and put bedding in their, let's say our dogs during the wintertime, straw and all that. And I was the one and I enjoyed it, but I made a commitment to do that. And I remember many times before school, it'd be like this cold, if not colder, and those dogs had to get fed. And I needed to check on them. And I made a commitment. I remember thinking, oh man, not today. But that wouldn't be fair to those animals. And I remember thinking, I got to do it. I didn't feel like doing it. Get outside, make sure everything's dug out around them, make sure they got the straw they need, try to get them some water, get them some food. And get home, same thing, checking on them all the time, checking on them. Now, that type of consistency, when it comes to being a burden bearer, there's a toughness, a resolve, a resiliency. It's not about us. We're not doing it for us. Remember, we ought to bear the burdens of others and not to please our own selves. We live in such a selfish society. We can't really be stable because what about me? What about what I want to do? Why can't I treat myself the way I want to? Why can't I do? Really? Really? That's the way we want to live our lives? We ought to want to live our lives to make it not just easy on people around us, but make it so that we improve the quality of life. Let's be contributors. Husbands, let's make it better for our wives. Wives, let's make it, not we, you make it better for your husbands. Moms and dads, make it better for your children. Hey, young person, make it easier and better for your parents. We serve the Lord, let's make it better. So let me give you 1 and 2, and we're done tonight. Stability is built in the ordinary. On the ordinary. It's built in the ordinary, not the extraordinary. It shows up in season and out of season. And burden bearing becomes, and don't miss this as we finish tonight, a lifestyle. Burden bearing becomes a lifestyle, not occasional events. It's not just what you and I do, it becomes who we are. Now, and we do it with humility. Never out of pity, but humility. Because that could be me. Or that was me. Or I don't want that to be me. But we do it with humility. And this is a type of life that ought to define a Christian. We can sing great songs for the Lord, but are we bearing others' burdens? We can pass out tracts and tell people, but are we also bearing people's burdens? There are a lot of things we might be gifted to do that draws attention to ourselves. But what about that which nobody else sees? What about this thing here called our heart? Where we're helping others for the sake of Christ. No strings attached. No thank you necessary. We're trying to bear the burdens of others. Does that make a little sense tonight? And that is Christianity 101. We'll pick it back up again next week. Let's do this. We're going to have a time of invitation, a time of prayer. And so we're going to have to pray over I'm going to have Brother John Mark to come and pray over our prayer list tonight. And we're also going to have a time of invitation. And let's hey, listen, this is Wednesday night, prayer time. And let's take advantage of that. whether it was something in the lesson or the message, or whether it's something you need to pray about, this is a time of prayer. And it's not always easy to find these pockets in our schedule where we can be in this atmosphere, where we can really get some praying done. So whatever it is that we need to do, certainly we got our prayer sheet we can pray with and for, but we might have something else that we need to pray for. The altars, of course, are open. If the Lord spoke to your heart, you want to come, you need to come, you want to come, please do so. So let's go ahead and have a time of prayer. We'll go ahead and play very softly here and maybe give about a minute or two for a time of invitation. Then after that, Ms. Hannah, if you kind of go and taper down, and then if you can pray over our prayer list and then dismiss us in prayer as well.